On my channel today, I'm going to be reviewing this 1/10 scale RC monster truck, most better known as Bigfoot. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was just going through the local Target here, and I just happened to be in the RC aisle, and I found this bad boy sitting there. It was pretty cheap, and I've always loved Bigfoot. I'm a kid of the 80s, so Bigfoot has definitely been a big influencer throughout my youth, so I couldn't pass this up. Let's crack it open and see what's inside. One of the gimmicks of the truck is that it has a working, well, I shouldn't say working, but shaking engine and sounds. Here on the remote, you press this button, it says start. And then you also have engine. Both of them pretty much do the exact same thing. It is powered by a 9.6 volt lithium ion battery pack. For those of the kids in the 80s like myself and 90s, 9.6 volt was like the bellwether to which all other RCs were judged. If you remember, your Tyco RCs always advertised 9.6 volts of power. This time, 9.6 volts really isn't all that much anymore. New Bright used to have 12.8 volt stuff. In fact, I used to have one.
Man, they sure didn't want this thing going anywhere. What in the world?
So during the unboxing, it was pretty complicated because of the wire that powers the demo to the motor. So you have to unplug that from this port right here. And then, of course, I don't know why they do this now, but every single remote control has to have a battery case that has to have a screw. But I was also pleasantly surprised that when I flipped over the truck, there's a second battery in there. That's awesome. Well, thanks, New Bright. As I was taking the box apart, the battery in the package is for display only. What the heck is that stuff? So the truck overall, I think, looks really, really cool. Now, again, like I said, I'm a child of the 80s, so I'm used to Bigfoot 1 and Bigfoot 2 that were actually Ford F-250s. Of course, I know that there has been a lot of modifications over the years, but this truck looks pretty awesome. The body is actually quite stiff. I know this is a toy grade, but I think this body could actually take some punishment. It does have LED lights that do light up. We'll see that in a minute. The tires are actually kind of squishy. They're rigid on the sidewalls, but on the top, you know where the tread is, they're actually pretty squishy, and you can even hear air movement. So this should be able to take a little bit of jumps and stuff. That probably makes up for the fact that there is no actual suspension on the truck at all. There's none. It's all just a solid axle on the back, and there's like not even pretending to have shocks on here other than the fake shocks on there, but there's like not even like coilover toy shocks or anything. So I mean that might help with off-roading, I guess, but in terms of performance, it's probably going to hamper its performance. So I disconnected the battery. There was another power cable attached right here for the demo stuff, of course. The one thing about New Brights that I don't like, I mean, I love the truck, I just had to buy it for the nostalgia factor, but one of the things I noticed about New Brights is their front ends are really loose. Really loose. The other 12.8 volt one I had, this was a big problem. That this joint in here, it's just not very solid. It's always loose. So when you're driving, this is always a problem. You're never going to be able to go in a straight line. And it has a manual, it does manually use this knob to center the wheel. So in my experience, this is something that might break off over time. All right, so I put the battery in the truck. See, battery in the truck. Put the batteries in the remote, but I don't have a screw to fasten that on, so it's just going to be what it's going to be. There is no cover for that extra port for the demo power cable, so whatever. All right, so we're going to turn on the truck. So engine sounds start right up. LED lights are flashing. So let's have a look-see. There's no power button on the remote, so I think just simply moving the joysticks binds it. Oh, there you go. So this is what I'm talking about. With that loose front end, anytime that you make turns, it doesn't return all the way to center. So, yeah, so I make a turn, but then going forward might straighten it out a little bit, but not enough. Not enough to keep it true. So you're constantly going to be having to fight. You're going to have to fight a lot of wheel drift when you move. So let's have a look-see. Let's move it forward. Whoa! Whoa! All right, so it looks like the motor, the motor moves with the truck. That's pretty cool. So before I take this thing out in my backyard or the field behind my house, I'm going to give the battery a proper charge. Just put the battery in the charger there. And then plug it into your power source. I'm going to give that a proper charge before I take it out. All right, the battery is all charged up and we're ready to go. So I'm going to turn on the truck. As you can see, this is still loose. I did try tightening the screws on the side, but it didn't do really anything. There's just a lot of play in that steering mechanism. So as you can see, it is struggling to return to center. So let's see, all that aside, let's see what happens here. Whoop, I pushed the button. Here we go. Yeah, it's not all that fast. The steering trim is definitely off. All right, I tried dialing the steering a little bit. Man, it is really going to the right. All right. It's going to be fighting that. Isn't handling the grass all that well. And there's just a little bit of grass here too. In fact, I think it's overheated. There we go. Yeah, it's having a hard time steering. Yeah, that loose bushing, the loose bushings in the front are really giving this thing a hard time. All right, we recentered the wheels a little bit. Let's see what goes on here. Yeah, man, it just constantly wants to go to the right. Jeez. I'm not even telling it to go right. The wheels are just, it is just always going to the right. The fact that there's no suspension either doesn't help. It's all just straight axle. All right, I've adjusted the trim again. This time I put it hard left. And it just constantly wants to pull to the right. It's having a hard time straightening out too. All right, so there's definitely steering issues there, which I've said from the beginning would happen. Doesn't have a lot of torque either. It's, for a 9.6 volt, they really seem to have sacrificed torque. Let's see what we can do about, obstacles. Here's a curb. Let's see what happens. If we can even get it there. All right. So it tackled that, but it really slows down. It's not very fast to begin with. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try and zoom in. I'm going to try and zoom in. When it runs, this tire just bends completely into the right. It like digs into the truck. I don't know if you can see that. Look how much play it. Again, I don't know how you can see it. That driver's side, this driver's side tire just wobbles like crazy. And again, I have the steering pitched all the way to the left and it is still pulling right. So I'm going to have to try something. I'm going to have to try something different. All right, guys. So just came back in from having this outside for the first time. And I got to say that the pros for this vehicle are that it looks great. I mean, just right there, it looks amazing. Even just static, it looks badass, right? But that's about all that this thing really has going for it. I will share with you, it was $60. I think it was way overpriced. I really do. The body is sturdy, but it wouldn't matter because you can't do any like stunts with it. You can't do any tricks with it. There's no suspension. The front end is very problematic. The front end is so wobbly that I think the motor the servo motor has to work so hard to keep it somewhat to the side, but all of this kills your momentum, and it just affects the drive motor because there's no suspension. So this jutting motion, I mean, it just kills the battery. I mean, I was only out there, I mean, I know it's not going to show in the video, but I was out there for 6 minutes, and this thing's pretty much already dead. And that's one of my big problems with modern RC cars, especially ready to run or toy grade, which, don't laugh, but that's all I can really afford. The single battery just drains everything. It's the same with the Gravedigger. With my one son got this Gravedigger for his birthday last year. I mean, this is an awesome truck. This is an awesome truck. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it has no power. And it's the same thing. The steering, it does last about a good 20 minutes, but you take it in anything deep and it overheats, even with these big foam tires. But this at least has some suspension. This doesn't. I mean, I bet you the motor is probably the exact same size. And there is a lot electronically. There is a lot going on in here. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see. Let's go inside, try and see it. There's a lot going on there electronically. Look at, because of all the LEDs and the motor needing to rock and the servos and everything. I just think it's also underpowered. I think this could have really benefited from the 12.8 lithium ion that New Bright used to offer. Maybe they're not offering it anymore. But there you go, take it or leave it. I think I'm just going to give this to my kids. They're going to go over the moon for it, simply because it's a monster truck. But I had much higher hopes for this. I was very disappointed in this vehicle. So if you want something for your kids to play with, fantastic. If you're an overgrown man-child like me, I think you're going to be very disappointed. So thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out the other videos on my channel. And I'll see you in the next video.